Evening everyone, welcome into your box seat, brought to you in association with Sweet Lou standing at Woodlands, Michael Guerin building into Addington's May Carnival, I suppose, and of course over the last 10 or 11 years with the Harness Jewels, it holds huge significance in terms of accumulating money, particularly for those in the back end of each of the age groups, the pacers and the trotters. But that's not the biggest story this week, is it?
No, it's not, isn't it? It's huge news. Everybody knows it by now. Of course, good evening to you around the country. The champ is au revoir, as they would say in France. He's going. Greg, and whether we now buy into Lazarus's North American campaign, whether it's successful, whether it flies the flag as we hope it will, that's all in the future. Tonight we'll talk about the career of the champ and what it all means for the open class horses heading forward. Also, the news coming out this morning from the Auckland Trotting Club. They've had a few stakes rises over the years, but this is a whole new ball game. Plenty to talk about tonight.
There is. We'll focus on Lazarus rather to start with because he thoroughly deserves that. We'll have a look at those stakes increases for the ATC. Another masterpiece. Well, he just keeps on getting better and he bagged the $200,000 PGG Rights and Two-Year-Old Open final. Preview of Addington, the $140,000 Neville Fillies final, which should be a cracking contest. And the best bets, this bloke here just keeps on tipping the
paid
winners.
$1.40. Let's not be silly. Last week
I think it was $1.20. Let's not get ahead of yourself.
Paid $1.40 on the fixed odds. I'm sorry, but it still won.
Which is better than mine.
Did yours win?
No, Majestic Hurricane fourth.
Have you heard of Lazarus?
Yeah.
You won't see him again unless you go to North America. What was your first reaction? Because I think we all knew it was coming, but I had my doubts that John Curtin, and he deserves some congratulations for this, the agent involved, could stitch this deal together. When you heard on Sunday that Lazarus was actually going to be sold and not race here again, was there an instant sort of disappointment?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely leading towards November because he's been part of the last two campaigns. He went up to Kaikoura. His record leading into the Cup has always been the most important step towards the second Tuesday in November. So to not have him there this year, but what it does is opens a door significantly for many other horses. But I suppose the flip side of that is the exit door for so many of our free-for-allers in the last 6 to 8 months out of the All-Stars barn has been nothing short of remarkable.
You talk about changings of the guard over a long period of time. Let's not forget, this time last year, Smolder was yet to be retired. So we had, in the last 12 months, we've lost Smolder, Lazarus, Vincent, Heaven Rocks, Waikiki Beach. So they're the horses who were in the All-Stars alone who have moved on. And we've had injuries of significant levels to Dream About Me and the Orange Agent, who hopefully are coming back. We'll talk more about who it leaves in the mix heading forward. But I think a lot of people feel sad's probably too dramatic a word. It's not like anybody's died. But they're disappointed because that road to the Cup would have been an anticipation of a third win, which would come with, again, that conversation, where does he stand in the best ever and all that sort of stuff. I think also the Inter-Dominions in Victoria coming back to the Eastern Seaboard, they would have loved to have him flying the flag because around about Hunter Cup time only a couple of months ago now, a lot of galloping trainers and people, you go to the gallops a lot at Riccarton, they'll be asking you about it and Lazarus was all the hype and he was in a window where Winx wasn't racing, so he was the best horse racing in Australasia. And it's going to be really hard to manufacture another one of those, particularly with Vincent also being retired. So I do think that if he goes to North America and does a job, it might create some interest here and bring those two jurisdictions closer together. And at the moment, they're quite far apart. I don't know anybody here who watches North American harness racing, but that's of no solace to Addington, to Harness Racing Victoria, and of course to Menangle, where I would love to have seen him win a Miracle Mile. But it's big money. We're believing it's one side or the other of $4 million. And at least that says to people out there who are buying these harness horses, if you do strike the lotto ticket, the lotto payout's quite big.
Yep, definitely. I think it was about 80 or 90,000 as a yearling purchase, somewhere around
No, I think
there.
it was only 50.
I thought it was a little bit more than that.
Whatever,
Anyway,
whatever
doesn't
it was,
matter.
it's irrelevant now.
It was a pretty good buy. 45 career starts in Australasia, of course. He won 35 of those. Ironically, Michael, the one time that he missed a place was his last start in the Miracle Mile.
Yeah, and see, there you go. One unplaced run.
And he's gone.
They flick you on. And quite a few of those unplaced runs, let's get to the bottom of them. The Fremantle Cup wins second, absolutely enormous. 2 Inter-Dominion placings where they weren't really that
In the heats,
important.
yep.
Exactly, they were heats, and Inter-Dominion heat places just don't count for anything. And a couple of races as a 2-year-old, one he wasn't ready for, and another one
That was
where
the Young Guns final,
and he
and then
stormed
the-
home in the Sire Stakes final. You could make a really legitimate excuse for 4 or 5 of those races. Also, when he got beaten the Ballarat Cup running second to Smolder, he wasn't ready, and Smolder was. He's a horse who could have gone really, really close to having a record of like 45 starts, 40 or 41 wins. But that's not what I think we're going to remember him for, Greg.
What we'll do tonight...
It's the big ones.
Yeah,
that you
and
remember.
we've come up with 6 of the best.
6?
Not necessarily in ranking order, but without doubt, Michael, the New Zealand Cup, where he absolutely demolished the whole field.
So do you start at the bottom or we start at the top?
Well, I'm not suggesting that it's in order, but I think this was his career-defining moment. When he won this New Zealand Cup with Mark Purdon doing the business and simply sitting there and asking him to go.
Lazarus is out by 5 lengths, Tiger Tara, then Smolder and Tiger Tara, but it is all Lazarus clear of Tiger Tara, and once again, Lazarus has arisen. Lazarus has beaten Tiger Tara and Titan...
As is always the case, Michael, huge crowd there, and it's just what people wanted to come in to see. He'd dominated in the lead-up races, he was all the talk on the day, but what he did on this day was quite remarkable.
It was an arrival, because lead-up races are lead-up races. You still need to win the big dance. You don't win them by 10, and you don't win them by 10 in national record / world record time. After that race, I had a couple of our Australian friends who were across for the race saying, yeah, look, to be honest, rah, doesn't matter, those horses are rubbish. None of them will be competitive at the Inter-Dominions. The subsequent format of that race, Tiger Tara has gone on to be one of the best horses in Australasia and have run third in Inter-Dominion final. Smolder ran 4th in that race. Smolder sat in the trail and ran 4th in that race. A month later, he came from the worst barrier to win the Inter-Dominion. For a horse to beat those horses
By that.
that easily, it's one of those things like Winx's first Cox Plate or Sunline's first Cox Plate, where you just shake your head and go, you might watch racing for 50 years and never see that again. I hope we do see something like it, but that's the New Zealand Cup by 10.
Inter-Dominion, let's have a look at that. Mark had set him for this. We'll get another look at his second New Zealand Cup, but you were there. This was a remarkable win by a horse in sublime form.
Lazarus in front, Chicago Bull goes to second, but it's the great New Zealander, Lazarus. Lazarus has won the Inter-Dominion.
That came off the back of winning a second New Zealand Cup. You have to travel. It's an awfully, awfully hard place to travel to, Perth. And you're up against in-form good horses on their home track, Chicago Bull and Soho Tribeca. Tiger Tara, who loves to be in front up against the marker pegs. You lose so much on each bend at Gloucester Park. And in the middle stages of the race, logic was saying to you, gee, this is going to be hard. And there was a moment for about 3 or 4 seconds down the back straight where Mark went from not putting pressure on to saying, I've had enough of this, and changed gear, and the whole place just went, wow. And then the ride up the straight was one of those things. Afterwards, people were saying, what just happened there? Because your logic tells you the numbers, you can't do that. And it was a moment of beauty. To do that so far from home was a remarkable achievement, particularly inside a month of winning the New Zealand Cup. That was a pretty special night / morning.
Yeah, to be able to do that, and of course he'd won a Hunter Cup. We'll go back and have a look at that to boot. The year before he'd won the Victoria Cup. We'll have a look at that as well, because all of these are great victories. But his Hunter Cup success, I felt, was pretty dominant again. And well,
it came off the back of an injury in Perth where they thought he may not make the race. We'll talk more about that after Dan Malecki brings them home in the Hunter Cup.
Tribeca's coming. It's Lazarus, Soho Tribeca. Lazarus in front from Soho Tribeca. Lazarus keeps giving. The miracle horse in front, and Lazarus has done it again. Lazarus, the champ, has beaten Soho.
Yeah, that was a brilliant performance for those reasons you exactly outlined there. There was every chance after Perth that he wasn't going to get to the Victoria Carnival.
Well, what you didn't see, obviously, there is he went to Fremantle and had that staggering defeat, one of the greatest defeats I've ever seen, and that left him with hoof problems. And Mark said to me the day after that, I don't think we'll make the Hunter Cup. And it was a week before they thought they would make the Hunter Cup. So here's a 5-year-old stallion who's been all around the South Island, been to Perth, won the Interdoms, he's been stuck over there, a long way from home, and now he's got hoof problems. And a lot of stallions have sort of said, I'm jack at this, I've had enough. He gets back, he has no lead-up race, and he just demolishes them in a great race, the Hunter Cup. It was again, there's so many of them, it was a pretty special night, but that was one where he overcame obstacles, Greg, to get there, and you were there, and you and I were there afterwards, and one of the most fondest memories I'll have of Lazarus is later on we did a little piece to camera with him out the back, and here he is, 5-year-old stallion, huge race, rubbing his nose against the back of your suit. It was like you were dealing with a kid's pony. It was like, wow, you are the real deal in all aspects.
Yeah, it was a very cool moment, wasn't it? Just out the back of the stabling area there. Trotting Cup number 2 for him. Well, that all happened before he won that Inter-Dominion and that Hunter Cup. But again, he was awesome. He stepped straight to the lead. And Mark Mack will bring him home for Cup win number 2.
He's going to do it again. He's out by 8. It's Lazarus clear of Jack's Legend and Tiger Tara. Get Nasser on the phone. He is in another orbit. Lazarus does it again. Lazarus beat Jack's Legend, Tiger Tara.
One of the great calls of the Cup. He was really racing at a different level, wasn't he, Michael?
It was actually quite weird. He won the New Zealand Cup by 5.5 lengths. There's some stalker attacking him. And because he won by 10 the year before, I sort of went, oh. And then you've got to realise the New Zealand Cup by 5.5 lengths is such an incredibly rare thing. And
if he hadn't have done what he did the year before.
Also, I don't think Mark really let him go. I think he actually half drove him in that race, thinking, oh, we've got the Inter-Dominions in a couple of weeks. I can't remember a New Zealand Cup which ever felt like such a fait accompli. I think everybody just went there. And if there's a downside to this, and there's no downside to these performances, at least him going away this year's New Zealand Cup's going to seem a little bit more uncertain. That would be a pretty big highlight reel for anybody, but we have a couple more.
The year before we went...
The free-for-all?
Yeah, no, the Victoria Cup first, because we went over there to do the story alongside Mark, and he gave us unprecedented access on the day to a day in the life of Lazarus. Then we went to Tabcorp Park, Melton, and witnessed this.
Mark Purden's got the high five coming up. Lazarus bolts away. He's a 4-year-old. The world is his oyster. Lazarus is going to bring them. The Ainsbury Victoria Cup goes to Lazarus by 10 metres.
And again, following him through the day and taking in everything that Mark did with him before he got to the track, and then as he got geared up and went out and then did that, Michael, one of the highlights of my broadcasting career.
Look, it wasn't a great field, and there was a skirmish at the start, so the fact he won easily probably was flattered a little bit by the fact the horses around him weren't that good, but it was a track record. It wouldn't have mattered what happened, he still would have won, and subsequent things have shown this was more or less a pit stop on the road to greatness. I will say one thing about last year's campaign. That was, I think he was never the same after the Cup Carnival. I think he had tying up problems after the Cup Carnival, and Mark and Nat had to sort of negotiate that campaign in Australia, and I think that cost him a Miracle Mile. He won a Chariots of Fire, he won that race, he won a Bonanza, won a Cambridge Flying Mile, but he wasn't dominant during that period. So there was the New Zealand Cup first year Lazarus, and then this season's Lazarus, but I think he actually was doing a lot of that at 95% or maybe one cylinder down, and that's a Victoria Cup after all. That's one of their biggest races. And
Michael, I know one of your favourite wins was the 2016 New Zealand Free-for-all, 3 days after he destroyed them in the Cup.
Had to be, because you win the Cup by 10, and that can take a little bit out of you. Then Chris and Me, who was a great speed horse, let's not forget, Chris and Me won the Miracle Mile, and he was in front in this race, and Lazarus was outside him. So he had to be clearly better than him. And there was a moment at the 400 where you thought, well, hold on, this horse might be in a little bit of danger, as you felt in the Victoria Derby the year before. And then, so here it is, there's the moment you think, danger, and then, nah. All of a sudden, he just changed gears.
Chris and Me's ahead on Lazarus. He comes at him now. He's gone past Chris and Me, Tiger Tara, Mossdale Connor, Lazarus. They tried to undo him. He's simply unbeatable. He's a harness racing god, and Lazarus won it. Beat Chris and Me and Tiger Tara.
So great to go back and have a look at what we felt were 6 of the best. There were, as you mentioned, plenty of other huge wins both sides of the Tasman.
And the Fremantle Cup defeat,
Well, that...
which was remarkable. Look, we're leaving a harness duels, 3 derbies.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, a Chariots of
We
Fire.
could spend the whole show on him, to be absolutely fair. One person I did want to mention was his breeder, Gavin Chin, who probably hasn't got the exposure throughout this horse's career, because once you breed them, sell them on, I suppose it's you're no longer part
It's as simple as
the
this.
team.
No Gavin Chin, no Lazarus.
That's right. So
And
well done to you.
And all those afternoons, I agree. And all those afternoons and nights where you get quite a bit of joy, like watching your favourite footy team or soccer team or cricket team. You get that buzz, and you sort of, not till you see them all together do you realise what a big part it's been of some of our lives for the last 2 or 3 years. So it's the closest thing we've had to Winx for an awfully long time. It's not as big as Winx. And
15 Group 1 wins, 9 here and 6 in Australia.
And a lot of people have asked me about the comparison between him and Winx, and Winx is a freak, so by no means am I saying he's as good as Winx, but he also has a harder life because they travel a lot further. They race over 2 miles to a mile. Obviously, a really good galloper, particularly got Winx who can handle a wet track, doesn't have the disadvantages a harness horse can have where you get back at Gloucester Park and you might cover an extra 40 metres at Gloucester Park. So while she is she is the champ, he is the closest thing we've had since a Christian Cullen, but his body of work is longer than Christian Cullen's because Christian Cullen was robbed of that opportunity. Now the question comes up, what happens next? So first of all, we know he's going to North America. Now there's 2 races at the Red Mile in Kentucky, which is a very fast track. What do you honestly think's going to happen? I think the horse could go to Jimmy Takter, who's an outstanding horseman and has a property not dissimilar to Mark's. So if we can only happenstance that he ends up in the same form, what are you expecting to see in North America? Or is that an impossible question to answer?
I don't think it's impossible. I suppose it's more what I'm hoping to see, that our greatest pacer in the last 10 years, maybe even a bit more, will go up there and deliver what he has, not only in New Zealand, because he's done it in Australia. You take the Miracle Mile out of it, he's won everything he's been set for over there. So I'm hopeful he'll go up there and display what he was able to here in New Zealand. And if he does, that could open a lot of doors.
Yeah, there's some minuses and some pluses. Obviously, he doesn't have high gate speed. They might hone that out of him over there, but he could be settling back in these races with 25 4 opening quarters and then having to chase. So that's difficult enough to do. Most horses get sick when they go to the US, so it's good he's going soon because he'll get a chance.
24th of this month.
Exactly,
yes,
so he can get over that and bounce back. Then you've got to say to yourself, a lot of the older horses in North America are just older free-for-all horses because they often retire their best colts at 3 or 4. So
to go to stud, yeah.
Exactly. So there is a chance the horses he's racing against, and who knows what comes and goes, may not be absolute button-down superstars. So he's definitely good enough to win a Breeders' Crown if all of those things fall into play. But what he gets now, what we lose is the thrill of next season for us. What he gets is he now gets a chance to be in the conversation with Cardigan Bay and Lyell Creek. They're our 2 greatest standard breeds because they did it here. And let's not forget how dominant Lyell Creek was. And Cardigan Bay is just in a whole different ballgame. But they went to North America and did it. Cardigan Bay beat all 3 Hall of Famers he raced. That's incredible. So Lazarus gets a chance to go there and try and do that. Because if he had won 4 New Zealand Cups and 2 Inter-Dominions and a Miracle Mile, there still would have been that caveat over his career of, yeah, but hold on, he didn't beat the best horses in America, so now he gets the chance to do that. We also can't mention all this without saying to Tailor-Made Stallions, not only well done, but thank you for that level of investment, Greg. They are potentially opening a door here for a dual hemisphere stallion, which could potentially open doors for others. I'm not saying that'll work, I don't know, but I'm not the one putting up $4 million to find out. So there's a lot of people who've put a lot into this.
Mark and Natalie.
And
Mark driving wise.
Yeah, and the two travelling foremen he's had in the last couple of years, Poi and Sean McAnulty, have spent a lot of time with the horse. It's been a fun ride.
Look, he earned 3.8 million and he's been sold for 4 million.
Well, close enough. That's what we
Well,
think.
let's
exactly.
let's say.
Yeah.
So that means 400 drops into the All Stars bank. Yep. If based on 10% of the sale price.
Well, let's talk about the business of it, because
that is serious business.
Also, and a couple of people said to me, if it was my horse, I wouldn't have sold them. Well, there's two things out of this. First of all, the people involved in this horse have had a lot of enjoyment, but they've also pouring an awful lot of money into the game. The Kennards and Trevor Casey's outlay on harness horses would be enormous. So you need to get some back. A lot of our stallions in the past have raced past their best. Heracles, Alvacolo, those type of horses, and you retire them and they're not at their best, so they devalue themselves. I would suggest Lazarus could stand at $10,000 if he's still at stud tomorrow in New Zealand. So he's retiring at the right time from that point of view, from a New Zealand point of view. And the other thing is too, I wouldn't sell him if he was mine, because I'll be getting such a thrill out of a New Zealand Cup. But the Risleys have a Rowe Cup winner, and they have Lenny the Shark, and they were involved in Smolder, as were the Kennards.
And they've got Ultimate Machete.
Exactly, and Trevor Casey's had Stent and that sort of stuff. So it's really easy for people watching this home to say, well, there's no chance I'd sell them. But when you're involved with that level of investment, and you've also got those other horses in your pathway, it's like a Godolphin or someone on a far smaller scale, moving on horses. So, as I said, it's been a hell of a ride. I've really enjoyed it. I want to thank Lazarus and Mark and Nat and everybody else involved, Sean and Poi and those sort of guys. And I just hope North America goes well, so we still stay invested in the horse. What I don't want is him to go to the Red Mile, run 3rd and 5th, and then people start going,
No, he won't let us down, I'm sure, Michael, so that won't happen. But I tell you what it also does is opens up a huge opportunity for those who are going to be here for this New Zealand Cup Carnival. Because without him there...
Oh, I'd love to open a market now. If they opened a market now, here's who we think would be in that market. I think maybe Ultimate Machete would be the favourite. Now, the reason I'm saying that is I think Jillaby Kung Fu wouldn't come. There's no standing starts in Victoria, so therefore no way to prep him. So him and the ageing Lenny the Shark. So Ultimate Machete, spoke to Mark this week, he's on his way back. They think his issues are manageable. So that's one. Greg, Soho Tribeca, well, he's a warrior.
It'd be cool to see him come. Yep. Let's hope so. Tiger Tara's been there.
Well, they don't hold the New Zealand Cup unless Tiger Tara turns
Yep.
up. I think Sheriff is maybe the best of the young guns.
Yep.
Then the Orange Agent. Now, she's back in fast work. Look, there's no doubt she's good enough. I hope she holds together for the Hughes boys. And Dream About Me is very much the forgotten horse. Let's not forget she paced $3.55 when she won the Auckland Cup. Mark said, we're going to need to look after her hooves, are the problem. Then you have the other one, Star Galleria, 4th in an Auckland Cup and getting better. Jack's Legend, 2nd, of course, in the New Zealand Cup last year. AG's White Sox has beaten those horses that won an Easter Cup, which is a natural lead-up. And Amon Maguire.
And then the likes of Pat Salai. I mean, there are a string of them just in behind. So there's a fair water to go under the bridge, obviously, till that time.
And Chicago Bull, who's a very, very good horse, but they do have standing starts over there, but they've said they're going to turn up for the New Zealand Cup plenty of times before with horses from WA and not turned up. So, yeah.
On the Mighty Quinn springs to mind. Delishka sold to the US as well, so that's a big story from Brad Mowbray's team.
Yeah, and that's a shame because the mares don't tend to come back. Not a lot of them. So, will she go to the Jewels?
At this stage, I think they're still in negotiations as to whether that can happen for the connections there. So,
There's one thing which I haven't had suggested to me yet, and it was a thing I thought about on Sunday night about all this. Is there any reason Lazarus can't race there then come back? Like, for example, if Lazarus raced in the Breeders' Crown, which is November, why couldn't he come back here for, I'm not sure about the Inter-Dominion because I'm not sure of the quarantine time, it's about a month later, the Inter-Dominion or the Hunter Cup and the Miracle Mile. Like, realistically, if they want to make him a dual hemisphere stallion, or if he doesn't settle in, if he's not enjoying life up there, in which case he's not going to have an immediate career there, if they owned him, why couldn't you send him back here and say to Mark, well, look, hey, you got him back. You got 5 starts down there, go win that Miracle Mile. So the door would appear shut, but we're seeing stranger things.
It's been great to have a look back at the career of Lazarus as we go to the break. Let's reflect on some of his great moments.
Lazarus clear of Tiger Tara, and once again Lazarus has arisen. Lazarus has beaten Tiger Tara and Titan Banner.
and Lazarus charged up to hit the lead from Tiger Tara. Soho Tribeca, Lenny the Shark gets out into the straight. Lazarus, Soho Tribeca's coming. It's Lazarus, Soho Tribeca. Lazarus in front from Soho Tribeca. Lazarus keeps giving, the miracle horse in front, and Lazarus has done it again.
Your box seat continues. As mentioned at the top of the show, some enormous news coming out of the Auckland Trotting Club, and the man they call the Brand went out there and caught up with their boss, Bruce Carter, to find out what all the news was about.
Well, Bruce announced this morning some huge stakes increases starting March the 1st here next year. Tell us more.
Michael, our board have announced going forward from the 1st of March next year, we'll be increasing the stakes at Auckland Trotting Club significantly, which will mean the open class pace and the open class trot on a Friday night will be worth 25k each. There will be 2 races for 15k, which will be the maiden and the R40s. All other races will be for 20k on that program. So it's a lift of $50,000 per night in stakes.
So, Bruce, we're talking about bringing stakes relatively in line with what the Premier Stakes would be now, with the exception of the 2 smaller races for the night being at $15,000 each.
That's correct, Michael. What you're going to get in effect is a Premier Nights racing every night at Alexandra Park from the 1st of March next year, or before, if we can see that happening, but it'll be no later than the 1st of March.
Okay. Is that guaranteed? So, for example, if the Racefields legislation doesn't go through or the Racing Board funding changes, this money is, in your mind, in your board's mind, guaranteed for March 1 next year?
That's correct. We haven't taken in the Racefield legislation. This is an Auckland Trotting Club incentive and lift and stakes that will be going ahead.
You said the open class races will go to 25,000. I take it that's the tightest assessed race of the night. So, for example, if on a Friday night like next Friday, the tightest assessed race was a C4 to C7 or a 75 to 95, that would be worth $25,000.
That's correct, Michael.
Okay, so the idea, obviously, Bruce, is to keep those intermediate to open grade type horses in the country?
That's correct. It should keep those horses in the country racing for those stakes every week. It will also give the lesser class horses an incentive to race for $20,000. We see it's a major thing for the trainers and the owners and the drivers, this big stake increase.
Okay, there's 2 major apartment buildings going up here, some commercial space and some residential. One has been delayed. What's the completion date for that, and are these the main revenue stream for these stake increases?
Obviously, the revenue stream is connected to the development. We're looking at after Christmas now for the development in the A and the B block. Our board and management are doing everything possible to get these finished quicker. But that is the main driving force behind the stake increase.
There was a delay. Is the delay to building A, as it may be called, is that costing the ATC money?
Obviously, any delay costs money. The sooner we can open the development, the more we'll get our commercial rents, settlement of the apartments as they've all been sold. But we have also budgeted, if it was delayed, that we could still continue these stakes going forward from the 1st of March.
What about room for horses who may be in the south and struggling for fields and starts and struggling to make that sort of money to come north? I know you've had people from the club here canvassing trainers to see how many free stables there are in the north.
we're encouraging horses to come from the south, north to race for our stakes. We've also got a facility at Franklin where there is some space at the moment which we can accommodate some horses coming from the south. So we're doing this to bolster the racing in the north.
Great news, no question about that at all. How many horses will come north, or could there be a couple of trainers come north? Well, that's debatable.
Yeah, I think trainers moving, probably not older trainers. We're seeing Robert Dunn with John split their stable and
I actually talked to him
start a satellite
at the
stable.
latest carnival about that. He said, I anticipated this 5 years ago. That's the reason I'm here.
Well, it's funny, the club started saying this stuff 3 years ago when they started talking about building these 2 buildings, 3 buildings at the end, and people very much poo-pooed them. But this is actually...
It's happening,
It's
Michael.
true, it's real.
It's happening.
It's a real thing. And I don't think many trainers have moved north. If I was a 25-year-old trainer down home, I would consider it, but it also depends. If your dad owns a property and you're going to inherit it, you can't take it with you. From the point of view of horses, their average field size now is 9.3. They want to get to 11. They need to get to 13. Field size numbers, a normal Methven meeting turns over as much as Derby Night at Alexandra Park. Because the more horses you have, all the data proves it, the more betting there is in a race. So they need more horses. But these stakes will at least, if you've got a horse who is racing here, we sell a lot of horses out of the north. Take, for example, Northview Hustler. He's a prime example. He's probably not going to be an open class star, but he's a good, tough horse who can race every week. Well, effectively, you should be able to race him for never less than $20,000 again in his life.
About, what, 28 or 30 times?
Exactly a year. And if they're tough enough, and then you could race for your 25, which means you could win $100,000 a season with a horse like him, something like him, just using him as an example, and that gives you a reason to stay in the game. Whereas at the moment, I might think if I own that horse, I might send it to Menangle. The other thing too is the trotters are now going to be able to race for $25,000 effectively every week. So if you've got a C3 trotter, and these can race every week, some of them, you can think, well, why would you sell those horses? So I'm not sure it's so much about getting horses from the South Island. We're seeing a few trainers have horses come north, but I think it's more about retaining some of the ones who are there. And if you saw a horse you like, you could think, oh, I can go buy that for 20 with 3 or 4 mates, if you have that sort of wherewithal, and I realise not everybody does, and we can probably win that back in 6 months. So it's a great thing, Greg. It showed a lot of foresight from the late Kerry Hoggard and the board and the directors there now to do this. What happens after that is up to the trainers and the owners. They've got to try and do their best to hustle that. Eventually, and we're looking further down the track, Greg, eventually I think there'll be a movement towards a central northern training base. And Pukekohe is becoming a very vibrant area for housing. I wouldn't be surprised one day if the Franklin Training Centre was sold, because it's worth a fortune.
And that's owned by the Auckland Trotting Club?
Owned by the Auckland Trotting Club. Now, if you go to Puke, there's houses going up everywhere because you can get the train to Auckland these days. Now, if you sold that, you've got to say to yourself, if you built a purpose-built Menangle type facility, could you race on Tuesday afternoons, maximise your horse product, and then organise floats to go to Alexandra Park on Fridays? I think that's a dream scenario, and we're an awfully long way from that.
Or one day, will the pressure come that Alexandra Park and its current site is just too valuable?
Absolutely not. I had that conversation with Bruce. I said, is there any chance you'll sell Alexandra Park? He said, never. It will never be sold. They've developed those places on there. They can continue to develop it. It could look like Happy Valley if you want it to. You could have 19 apartment buildings there, but it'll never be sold.
Okay.
And that's the most important thing, because I've seen the effect moving to Melton and Menangle's had on crowd numbers.
Enormous.
And Addington and Alexandra Park are the jewels
need to be
of the
retained.
crown. So look, congratulations to the ATC
well
for having
done.
the foresight, to the board of directors, and it can only be a good thing. I'm sure there's some people out there in harness racing world who will find it negative. What will be interesting, Greg, is this. The rating 40 to 45 race, the Battlers race, is going to be $15,000, and on occasion it might get to 20. Will trainers still say, I'd rather go to Cambridge for 8 or there for 15 or 20? Because if it's a rating 40 to 45 horse, surely they're no stronger at Alexandra Park than they are at Cambridge, because they're rubbish anyway.
Yep.
So that thought process is going to be interesting.
Let's leave that, go back to Addington Friday night. $200,000 went on the line. Yes, it was the PGG Wrightson 2-year-old Open final, and another masterpiece. Well, he had the barrier draw, and he did this too.
With work to do. And then came Eisenberg, another masterpiece, is a length on Jesse Duke. Supreme Dominator ran to third. It's another masterpiece. And on Plummer's race night, this little tradesman will get the job done. Another masterpiece has beaten home Jesse Duke.
Well, congratulations, Tim. This horse just seems to get better and better.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Greg. That's right. He's just a professional little horse and a tradesman-like, and they couldn't ask much more of him. He's just got better each time he's hopped off the place, and I'm the lucky one that gets the privilege to sit behind him race day.
He showed really good early speed tonight. That lead time is about as good as they go for the 2-year-olds, and once he got there, he seemed to relax beautifully.
Yeah, that's just his whole nature and his whole makeup. Tonight was the first time I probably asked him to run off the gate as quick as he did tonight, and like you say, once he got there, he's got that lovely cruising speed in front. He was pretty happy out in front and enjoyed his work, and he does it so easily. It's a credit to the horse.
Going into tonight, obviously the punters and probably the stable felt Jesse Duke was the better chance, and on exposed form he probably looked to be that, but that wasn't the case.
No, that's right, and it mightn't be a knock on the other horse. I had the draw in my favour tonight, and Jesse Duke had to spot me a few lengths on the turn, which was probably lucky. I'm glad he wasn't sitting on my back, but to my fella's credit, he's knuckled down and got the job done.
154.3, he's now 4 from 6 and over 150,000, and I think he's at the top of the pecking order now.
Yeah, I see it differently from Tim. I don't think it would have mattered if you're sitting on his back. I don't think he made enough ground. Gee, he's been good, this horse. He really burned early. Star of Montana and him had a go at each other, and Jesse Duke didn't do anything to get into the 1-1. He just sat there. He was clearly the best. It's really hard to get your head around that, Greg, because after what we saw in the Young Guns final, Jesse Duke just looked better. But on what I saw there, he's top seed at the moment. But coming to the Jewels and the Sale Series, the Sire Stakes, next week, barrier draws will probably matter. Things could change. But if you voted for 2-year-old of the year now, he's got to get it.
Yeah, he's dominated. That is for sure. We're going to take a short break here on your box seat, and a massive night coming up. Addington Raceway Friday night. Good race at Alexandra Park too. We'll preview all of that for you next. Right, what's ahead for you this week around this nation? Forbury Park now. Note, people, twilight meeting, Michael, starts at 4:36. You'll be on air. There's a $40,000 pick of the sixer.
Yeah, that's doable. Yeah,
that's well worth getting involved there. Addington Raceway, very good night. 2 premiers in a row, of course. $140,000 Neville Filly Series final at Group 1 level is the highlight.
And a $25,000 pick 6.
Leave that there, Michael. Let's go to Alexandra Park. You might be there. I don't know. $150,000 New Zealand Yearling Sales 2-year-old fillies final, which has only got a small field. It's race 1, 5:39 the start of that. Trotting Oaks at Group 3 level. Isn't it great to see these Oaks all around the country?
And there's a Waikato Trotting Oaks coming up next week too.
Fantastic. Winton, 10 races there, 11:27 start time Saturday morning. Timaru, it's Ladies' Day down there. They've got a couple of lady-only drivers races, 11:35 the start time for that. And $3,000 bonus first 4 in every race. Those first 4 pools at Rangiora last Sunday.
I took a first 4
quite
last
big.
week. It
Did
was
you?
only the 3rd time of my life.
Oh, now you saddle cloths into first 4s.
I got it too.
Yeah,
At
good work.
Manawa too.
Excellent.
Hey, Addington's pretty big.
It is. Let's have a look at the first of the features, which is race number 3. Market is out for it. PGG Wright's and New Zealand Yearling Sales trot final. Good race to have a bet in, Michael. Cheerful, beautifully bred, out of Group 1 winner and Super Bowl cheerleader, trained by the All-Stars. $250 the price there. Get Lucky was outstanding on debut behind another of the All-Stars star trotters in Enhance Your Calm. Jake the Musk, great on Sunday, and Sonny's Little Gestic, you know a wee bit about.
Yeah, I thought Jake the Musk was the value here. Look, manners are going to dictate this race. Obviously, the 2 or 3 big names in the country must be homebreds or have been sold privately because they're not there. This is going to be a lovely kill for someone, 70k, so that's why you pay up for the Sales Series. I paid up for ours, he wasn't good enough.
Those couple I just talked about, Cheerful and Jake the Musk, they went to Rangiora on Sunday. Cheerful had a race day appearance. Jake the Musk had a race day appearance.
But he got knocked over, didn't he?
But this was a good run. He launched down the back.
He shouldn't be $9.
No.
That's over the odds. He won't pay $9 on the night
No, I'm
because
sure
you'll
of
be
that.
partially tipping him, in which case you'll pay $7.
Yeah, and Blair Orange takes the reins. He's won this race before with Prince Fearless, and yeah, I'll give him a good chance once again. Get Lucky was really, really good on debut from the outside of the
Is that
second
the horse who
row.
tried to run out the gate?
Alistair Black, yep, Brad Williamson. Yeah, it's got barrier 3 this
shouldn't
week.
laugh, it was pretty
No,
funny.
no, but I expect it to be a good battle between those three. Doff Your Cap, I've got a little bit of time for too. So yeah, there's some real
I hope
depth
Get Lucky wins.
in the 2-year-old.
We don't see enough deep south
Alistair
feature
Black.
race winners.
He does a pretty good
Alistair,
job.
Good
Yeah.
luck. I hope it wins for you.
Next of the features we'll have a look at, the Haras de Trotteurs, 5th on the program, Sire Stakes Classic.
Well, that's something you don't see every day. 500 to 1 if you want to back Elvis P.
Elvis P. He's first on the ballot, so he needs to get back in the field, but he's really long, as is Venito. We're
All
going
the
to go
talents
further
on the
down.
other page,
Yeah,
eh?
it is. They're off marks, and we
This is
headlined.
one of those strange races, and I'll explain to you why. When a horse gets placed in a Group 1, like Monty Python, like he did in the Road Cup, you can automatically think, well, coming back in Glade, it'll just win. But ironically, it's probably no better than a Bib Inter. And you can often get fooled. I'm not saying he can't win, but at $3.90 he's way too short. But you can get fooled into backing horses who have gone super races for second or third behind really good horses, and then afterwards you go, okay. 30 metres in a capacity field at Addington. Oh, look, Monty's trotting super, but that's way too
If
short.
they run to 1 mile rate, it'll be really hard for him to come around the field, given he was 3 the fence in
Well,
the
also,
in the
his
Road
winning
Cup.
percentage over a very long period of time suggests he should never be $3.90 in anything.
No, that's a fair
But
point.
Bib Inter's a decent chance, and he's trotting really
And he's
well.
going great. Let's have a look at his latest winning performance, Michael. It was part of the carnival at Alexandra Park, and, well, he dead set bolted in there.
Look, and he's in the zone. He's heading towards the Jewels, and a Jewels where he's got a chance of beating Ian Hine. By the way, this horse who's second here at this stage, Musculus, of course, sold. Neil Pilcher has bought him, and he's going to join the All-Stars. So that saw his Jewels odds halved last week.
Good race, though. The 5th on the program, first leg of that pick 6 we talked about. Yeah, I'm expecting a
Oh, by the
pretty
way,
good
the
run
trainer
for him.
of Bib Inter, Paul Nean, becoming a dad again.
Is he?
Good on you, Paul. Congratulations. One of my favourite people in harness racing. Him and his new wife are having a baby around about June or July. So congratulations.
Yeah,
Paul.
and good luck with that. Neville Yar Series final. I think it's about the 40th or 40th it might be, of this great series, won by all the best 3-year-old ladies.
Best things happen to this race is Better Joy drawing inside
Barrier
Ali
one.
Mac.
Yeah.
Exactly, because surely you would think, all things being equal, Dexter would not want to hand up, which means Ali Mac may have to sit parked outside her, and that's going to be a decent old barney. But who wins?
I think Ellie Mac. I
Oh,
think,
really?
Yep.
Ooh.
But over the 1950, it's going to be an intriguing contest. Let's have a look at the Southland Oaks winner first, DeBarber, who's come up $21. She's in sublime form. Yes, it's probably in lesser company, no doubt, but you can only win, and she did this to them in the Southern feature.
It's away by 2 lengths. Trayvite comes after it. Highline boxes on Repartee and Shatura down the outside. But this is over. And the Oaks go to DeBarber by 3 lengths. Home second, Trayvite. Now better than...
Yeah, big problem for her is where she's going to end up in the run, although logic would suggest Better Joy leads and Ali Mac sits outside, so therefore if you get into the running line, DeBarber might be in a good spot.
Well, it's actually a big problem for everybody because you're going to have the
Well,
best 2 fillies sitting 1 and 2. One would think, unless something goes wrong, like it did in the Northern Oaks with Better Joy, and gee, that's going to be a hell of a race if they lead and trail. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe Ali Mac will just outstay her, but
You're thinking the other way? You're thinking
Well-
Better Joy?
Look, she's got an awfully good chance. She's racing really well. She had a slight form snub. I think Sam Mockley drove her on this
Yes, she
occasion,
did.
and she
Yep.
just really sped up the straight. Admittedly, no Ali Mac, but Ali Mac is now going to need to be clearly superior, which she may be, but it's going to be a good fight to watch.
So that's Better Joy
tell you
going
what it
back
does
to
do.
back. She won at Forbury Park at Heat as
It
well,
also
of course.
gives you backable odds for Ali Mac. If you want to back her now, like had she drawn 1, 2 or 3 inside Better Joy, it'd be $1.30. You'd be like, nah.
If you're worried about Ellie Mac and where she's been, because she hasn't been on a racetrack for about 6 weeks, somewhere in that vicinity, here she is at the most recent trial. Now, the horse she beats here is Sicario. He was placed in the Derby, and she sat outside him for about the last 400 metres, I think it was from memory, maybe a little bit earlier. Others in this, good to see Franco Cristiano, that's him in 4th position. Yeah, look, if she goes like this, then I think she can sit outside and beat Better Joy.
And the All Stars horses do have a very good record of balancing up early, going to the death and winning races. But yeah, her key rival's almost certainly going to be Insider. So as I said, it's going to make for a great contest. And it also gives you an option. You can back either of them at close enough to even money. So if you have a strong opinion...
Michael, wouldn't it be great to see Dizzy Miss Lizzie get back to something like her best form? I did speak to Nigel McGrath about her. They put the spreaders on her. She's been tapping the knee, coming around the bends, and hasn't been a happy horse. A lot happier now. Follows Better Joy, so she gets her chance.
Look, she's yet to show me as a 3-year-old that she's either improved or improved as much as Ellie Mack and Better Joy. So the $12 is around about fair for her. These horses, of course, join next week in the Oaks by Sheasel Rock. So that's going to be really interesting. As I said, this is going to be quite a sexy group going forward to the Jewels. And a group where barrier draws are probably going to be more important for these ones, I would think, than, say, some of the other divisions.
Free for all on the night. Alta Orlando, he's been making these his own, including the Rangiora Classic and, of course, last week.
What do you make of this? Because he went like 12 or 13 starts in a row where he couldn't win a race, and then now he's just like a different horse.
Well, he's won his last 3 on the bounce, 4 of his last 5. He's won 10 now. Look, he gets a huge advantage, and I've spoken to a couple of horsemen about this, and this is no knock on the Dunn stable or John. Unruly means he can follow out pretty much whichever one he wants on the second row. Because
Don't you have to start 5 out?
Yeah.
The second row?
I don't know that for sure, but you don't have to.
In a preferential barrier draw, if you're unruly, you can't draw barrier 9.
No, so he just follows out.
So you follow out the middle of the second line. Whereas...
I don't think you have to start 5 out. But
I'll
ask that. I'll get the answer on the night.
You can start on the second line. So if he's actually just a normal horse,
yes,
he has to start from the outside of the front
line.
line.
Well, Bonnie Joan, she's the big loser here because she draws the outside.
What about your horse, Sheriff? You got the love. So is he ready?
He can't be too far away because, of course, he did this in the New Zealand Derby and he's got the Jewels not too far away. Well, this was an amazing performance.
Can you on Friday night go and speak to Nigel and find out?
I'll have Nigel on for sure.
If I'm watching and having a punt, I would like to know this.
Yeah. Well, he's got barrier 3. There's plenty of speed around him. I expect Tiger Thompson, Pat's Delight to go forward. Sicario, we've just watched in that trial. It's a great derby. It's one that I'll always remember pretty fondly because...
And national record time.
It was amazing time.
So there's 2 ways we can do this. You can go ask Nigel if it can win and you can text me, but that's going to mean texting everybody watching around New Zealand.
Or, I will tell the nation.
Or you can just tell us via trackside, which would seem smarter.
Let's have a look at Alta Orlando. He is without doubt the horse to beat. Again, this is him winning last week. That's Pat's Delight on the inside. Buster Brady, who was in an enormous speed battle early to get the lead. And of course, the other horse got close.
Billy Badger.
Billy Badger, who's just been in outstanding form too. But he's brave, he's found the line, he's found a way to win, and he just keeps on winning.
Look, he's a wonderfully courageous horse, but I don't think he can give Sheriff a start and beat him. Surely not. Not if we're talking about Sheriff being a New Zealand Cup horse. So I know these early starts before another big race like the Jewels are often fraught with danger, which again is why you need to either text the entire nation or tell us on Trackside.
No, I'll certainly do that on Friday night from Addington Raceway. Let's go up a couple of kilometres to Alexandra
Park. A couple of kilometres?
Well,
it's actually 1,000 kilometres.
I was going to say, it's 1,000 kilometres. Have you driven? Have you done it?
I actually have driven. It takes an hour and 20 in a plane, you idiot. So it's not a couple of kilometres. But yes, at Alexandra Park, they have a trotting oaks.
You're in a facetious mood, aren't you,
But they also
Michael?
have a $150,000 race, which is the first race on the card. And
should I go? Because you're running the show now.
Look, for 150k, this is a remarkably small, winnable race. There's a non-tote before this, but look, Have Time, I suppose, deserves to be favourite, but Todd McFarlane's filly's pretty good. Fantasise and Miss Streisand's been really strong.
She's been good, Miss Streisand.
Susanna was good last week. It's a funny thing. It's a little field, I see Ruby Rose isn't there. I know they were talking about scratching her. It looks like she might have been
she's
gone
had
already.
issues with her blood, and they can't quite get to the bottom of that. So unfortunately, she
for
comes out.
150k, it's living proof of why you pay up for these series. Here it is, the last time most of these met, of course, and the winner Kayla Marie not eligible, but Have Time Greg beats the rest of them. There's Miss Streisand in third, pretty convincingly, and you can make a case if she leads this week, she's the horse to beat.
Get it. Second was Have Time. Third, Miss Streisand. They were followed Amarindi fourth. Photos.
So that's race number 1 after the non-tote, as you quite rightly pointed out, Michael. Race 8 is the Hara de Trotters Northern Oaks.
You like saying that, eh? You like saying
they sponsor a lot of races, so you've got to.
But you just like saying it. You like it. It makes you feel a bit French.
Trotters.
This is a good race.
Yeah, you've got one though. You've labelled one.
Oh, hey, let's be honest. If Girls on Film trots all the way, it'll beat these.
Second to Luby Lou in the Trotting Oaks.
Well, Luby Lou will be $1.20 in this.
Yep. Just on her, obviously she's going to miss the Harness Jewels. She
Misses
comes
the
out of there,
Jewels.
but there's still a Breeders' Crown campaign.
Yeah, she could go to the Breeders' Crown. Disappointing. Better news at Princess Tiffany. They reckon she's fine. But Girls on Film won't matter. If the best version of her turns up, she'll win. Craig obviously will be on track for us, and we'll do the same thing. We'll get him to either
There was a unique situation on Friday
either
night.
text the nation when he finds out from the Dickey team which
Tell
one
me
they
about
prefer.
Friday night at the park though, because you took over for a couple of races.
Funny enough, I don't. When I go to the park, I went there to do a little survey, which you and I will discuss later. And I was sitting in the TAB watching the big race at Addington, and poor Craig got sick. And you know, when you're sick and you're outside, and it's cold. It's a crap experience. And then I heard him say, he's struggling with his voice, and I thought, I show him here. So I went outside and tended to the big fish. I said, brother, go home. I'll take care of this. So it was good, because teamwork's important.
Let's have a look at...
It made me feel like I was valuable for a couple of races.
Well, I'm sure he's back to 100%.
But I didn't come to camera because I had no makeup on and I looked terrible. Is it Wales? It's Wales' birthday today.
Yeah, the big fish.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Here's Six on Fire.
Talking about Wales.
Good performance. And she'll go a good race, I'm sure, on Friday night. The other one from last week that actually went really well was Monaro Mia.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Manawatu
ran third in the Trotting Oaks down south.
It went really good, so maybe it's not just a line-up.
How old would the whale be?
Oh.
I don't know.
I might just leave that.
He can tell us on Friday night when he also will speak to the Dickies and find out whether Girls on Film is good enough. He owes me that for last week because I filled him for 2 races.
He does. Short break for us here on Your Box Seat. When we return, we've got a survey that Michael and I have done, both at Alexandra Park and Addington Raceway. See you shortly. Well and truly in the home straight in your box seat. Now, Michael, last week we had Edward Rennell on the show and we talked about many things into Dominions, but in the main it was about the Harness Jewels. And one of the things we had a chat about was the start point for the Jewels at Cambridge. Now, we've had some correspondence come through from the Secretary of the Horsemen's Association with regard to them...
Well, they were upset because I said that the horseman had suggested that stays at a mile, and the horseman's representative on the executive did suggest that, and the executive followed that. What I said was, I don't believe that was representative of what the horsemen have told us in the past. So Gregory, that's him, and me, went to Addington and Alexandra Park, and we said, let's just go up with no agenda and say to the horse people, point blank, if, now that Addington's gone to 1950 for the Jewels, you had a choice, would you prefer Cambridge to be a mile or 1700? With no agenda. I asked 13 different horse people. I had 8 say definitely 1700, 3 say a mile, and 2 say don't really care in the middle.
Okay.
But one of those was Morris McKenzie. It's a Morris type answer. So the overwhelming majority for me said 1700. I haven't asked you. How did you get on?
I asked a dozen, 2 of which were North Islanders, Brent Mangos and Scott Phelan, who were both in town for the sales final. It was 10-2. And the 2
in favour of
1700,
okay.
And the 2 who said to me, nah, leave it at a mile, have both won 1 Harness Jewels each, and it was at Cambridge.
Okay, so we're talking there was 25 people surveyed, and it's not very scientific, and we're talking that 18 of them said they would rather go to 1700, which is just a point. I'm not saying anybody's wrong or right here. I don't care what.
And let's face it, they're not going to change it.
No,
so.
Exactly, but it comes down to the fact that maybe sometimes if horse people aren't going to these Horsemen's Associations meetings and not voting on these things, in the email last week we got from the secretary, he said one recent meeting had 6 people. Well, then some of the information being passed on their behalf to the executive maybe isn't representative of the mass, as we probably showed with that very impartial survey.
Michael, a couple of really good races coming up in Australia. The Angelique, which features Delightful Memphis, a Piccadilly Princess, Carla's Pixel.
Who's coming for the jewels.
Good race.
Yeah.
Beresari, Amaretto, good race.
Yeah, Carla's Pixel unlucky last week. She's still very much in line for the jewels. New jewels invite. Did Mark McNamara breed a horse that's coming to the jewels?
Yes, he did.
God, he'll be unbearable. Yeah. He'll be unbearable.
He did, and he's excited about her making her way.
Did Katie breed or did Mark breed?
No, Katie's part of the breeding, and Katie's father
well
as
done,
well.
Katie, but Mark
and Aaron Goadsby, I think he's involved there too. Wobbly New South Wales Derby.
Terrible the other night at Kilmore. He's going to the New South Wales Derby. He needs to win that to be coming to the
One
jewels.
Muscle Hill, Castle Ray, Sassy Pants, who's doing a good job. BD Sun, it's like an expat Kiwi race. What about best bets for this week?
A Gills on film, I think, but I'll get Whale. Hopefully, we'll check it out to see if the Dickies are happy with her. So follow his lead at the park on Friday night.
And I'm with Mark's gain. Scott Barrier won, standing start, but gee, had no luck last week. I expect him to be able to bounce back here.
Next week on the show, we're going to talk about a very special milestone one of our favourite horse people has reached. So we'll talk to him about that next week.
Look forward to that in 7 days' time. That's been your box seat. Enjoy your harness racing week ahead.